So, hello everyone. This is Aaron Kleinerman. This is Love, Sex, and Leadership. Very excited to have my dear friend Simon Paul Suttton joining us today for a conversation around masculinity, brotherhood, initiation, and I'm sure a wide variety of other things. He's a man. We used to do some laughing meditations together, actually live stream laughing when we were living down the street together during COVID. A dear friend and amazing facilitator, heart-centered brother, just making an impact with how he shows up in service everywhere he goes. He's an incredible human. Very, very grateful to have you here.
I'm just as soon as I see you, I just want to start laughing. So I don't know how far we will get without just laughing.
Well, there'll probably be some laughter here. So if you enjoy laughter, you'll definitely enjoy this show.
I must say, you may remember this, but for those listening, I have you in as the Aaron Cosmic Laughter. That's the name. That's the name in my phone. Whenever you pop up, it just says Aaron Cosmic Laughter. So
I love that. I love that. Yeah, probably from our days in COVID when coming together and we just have these big, what felt like a chuckle train with many people in the room and big groups of humans, just big laughing streams. So well, laughter is the best medicine, as we all know. I love that you have a Telegram actually channel of just people coming and doing 1 minute of laughter. Like if you want a best Telegram channel ever, those that are listening, we'll put it in the comments, the thing. You literally go there and you just see people all over the world on a chuckle train. It's the best thing you can ever find.
yeah, it's so simple. I just came back from a festival. Actually, I did a workshop there called The Cosmic Joke, and the potency and power of laughter leading us to our deep sorrow and grief as well, because it opens the channel, of the tears. The physiology of the crying and the laughing is linked in the same place. That's why sometimes when we cry, we laugh, we cry, right? They're so linked. So, and I remember just the small piece on this. I know it wasn't in the title, but I had no doubt we would talk about laughing. But I remember meeting you and you being very. We didn't even plan it. You just started laughing. Actually, I think you came to my condo and then you walked in and we said a few things, and then you just had this like contagious laughter, and I was like, then we were just off.
And then it all began. The friendship began.
So thank you for welcoming me here.
Yeah, for sure. So for those who don't know you, you want to share a little bit about yourself? I know you have a book and you've been working and weaving in this field of consciousness and self-development, and you have some amazing retreats you run. So just share a little bit about yourself and how you show up in the world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Somebody asked me that just recently, actually, a couple of days ago in this festival, as I mentioned, and you always respond slightly different depending on who asks. But I think the answer that keeps coming at the moment is simply I just have a kind of utopic dream. I'm a Piscean, and I have a utopic dream that if everybody loves themselves and realizes they're miracles, the way that we interact and live and this in this plane would be very different. So I've been on a bit of a mission just to remind people that they are love and that they're miracles.
You're a living, breathing miracle. Take that one home and let it land.
and the more I go out into the world and share like all the different maybe titles and so on, but at the root, it really is just this sense of living in the deep realization that we are a gift. Life is a gift. Life is a sacred, phenomenal, indescribable gift. And obviously I meet you there, but it's just bringing people together to remember that. And for me, it's way more simple than the many different parts and the conditioning and the domestication will allow us at times. And so that's really what it is, whether it's called Naked the Retreat or Transparent Communication or Cosmic Joke or, whatever, erotic self-expression. I love working with self-pleasure, and I love reframing masturbation to a self-pleasure meditation. It's another big piece for me around, everybody says they're looking for God. And often they're looking outside, and I say, well, we came from the lingam, we came from the yoni. If you want to find God, you've got to go back into, the lingam and the yoni verse, and
Mm.
that's where you will meet God. So I
Hmm.
always say, God. Everyone's looking for God, but God's been hidden in our pants.
Don't know about how many governments would appreciate that answer, but I certainly like it. And you mentioned, life is a gift, and of course, we can feel that and we can vibrate with that. But why do you feel like so many humans forget that, or like need to remember who they really are? Like, what is this whole falling asleep thing in your perspective?
Yeah, I've considered that myself, because I would say that I was born into a state of ignorance or unconsciousness, you could say. So, growing up on a council estate, growing up in an environment of very harsh and domestic violence, and the very fabric of the foundation, the environment with which I was born into was quite hostile, and absent fathers, and two absent fathers for myself, and many of the children I grew up with have had either an absent father or an absent mother. And in if you follow the thread of each of the lineage, then each time that my father's father, all of them are at a different state of their own evolution. And then I think each time there's a little bit more awareness coming. Yeah, so I got what I got and learned from what I learned from. But the conditioning is what I put it down to, is with which we're born into.
Hmm.
But at the same time, that doesn't mean that if you're born into rich and wealthy and so-called, let's say, more intellectual or even intelligent, that there's necessarily more awakeness. So, for me, there's so many different theories,
Hmm.
and there's so many different theories of why we're so conditioned. Like, well, we're supposed to be, and then that's part of the journey. And so I haven't come up with the exact reason, but all I can say myself is the more that I became aware, more
Hmm.
awareness of myself, and more awareness through the experiences I had, then I started to see a clear distinction, that there was this sense of fear. And when we're in fear, the system shuts down. When the system shuts down, these parts are created. And these parts, which I call protector parts, or in the realms of IFS, it's called managers and firefighters. But just stay with me with this piece. These parts are basically created to keep us alive.
Hmm.
This is like a trauma response from survivalism. So
Hmm.
what I
Hmm.
realized in myself is that many of my personalities and many of my actions were based from a deep state of fear.
Hmm.
And the more that I realized that, when I realized that and realized that fear, isn't isn't who I am.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I can
For
look at
sure.
fear from I can look at fear from a different perspective. And when I look at fear from a different perspective, I start to move into what I would call more of a loving state of awareness.
Hmm.
So I can't give you the exact answer, but that's just been the way that it's unfolded for me.
Yeah, and I feel like that loving state of awareness of remembering who we really are. Everyone has different breaking points to come back to that point. And I know for yourself, there were certainly you had a period of life where you were maybe living more the normal way of being, and connected to drugs and alcohol and all those different pieces. What was your strong breaking point? Where was the breaking point that you realized I can't do this anymore and I need to, forge a new way, live a new thing? Like where did your real point of awakening begin?
Yeah, I often reference that there's many choice points that unfold, and you don't always notice them until you look back. But one key
Mhm.
one was when I went to jail. So I was a criminal and a burglar, and kind of for a three or 4 year period, I was drug dealing and doing crime. and stealing from people's houses and many other places, sheds and different places. And so through that period, I was convicted on 2 offenses, one with 9 ounces of marijuana, and then another one with stolen goods were in the back of my car when I was pulled over by the police. So those 2 criminal acts gave me a year probation, and then a short sentence in a remand center. So I was in jail for, I got a 3-month sentence, and luckily did about 9.5 weeks in the end of that sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time, in when I was locked up, that was a big choice point for me, and I didn't realize that at the time. But I made a decision when I was sat in the cell one day, where I was like, right, I see a lot of friends coming in and out doing this, and I don't want to keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to come back here. You know, of
Mm-hmm.
course, I'd seen some movies and different things. I understood crime, I understood jail. You know, and so that was the turning point. But that wasn't. I didn't realize that was an awakening moment until very much later, when I was 30 years old. So that was when I was 18. So 12 years later, I had a huge epiphany moment through meeting another woman. And in that moment, having been exploring some books and so on, something cracked open. I had 15, up until that point, I had almost 12 years of taking MDMA. So my main drug was MDMA, cocaine and MDMA, but it was MDMA was my drug of choice, my thing, alcohol and marijuana. But basically, I had this epiphany and hit some form of ecstasy, and I hadn't taken any drug. I hadn't taken any MDMA, but I was fully high, for like a month. Yeah, it was like, I was like, if you saw me, you'd have said, dude, what have you taken?
You're high. Stop taking all the drugs.
Who's your dealer?
Wow. So obviously, ending up in jail and having a journey and to recognize that this isn't a life for you, and then to, transition into that world, but then to have a point of realizing that you want something different. It's really what I'm hearing. And that's the point that kind of drove you more forward into what I would say being a beneficial presence on the planet and really showing up in that way. Do you feel, and this is a question I look at for a lot of male bodies, especially, because I was just doing a chat with a friend this morning. We are talking about how often, men are quite stubborn and they're difficult and they're resistant to change and showing up and doing the work. And do you feel like every man really needs that, like, full breaking point, like hitting rock bottom in some way to actually, quote, see the light? Or is there another way? Is there another path? Or is that just part of the journey that's required, like one way, shape, or form, and not dying in order to show up and recognize who they really are?
Yeah, actually, it brings me to the retreat that you offer and that we will be offering now, the initiation journey. And I love how you speak about initiation. One of the things I kind of like is that education is adding in, right? We're bringing information in. Initiation is letting go. Initiation is, getting rid of. So for me, I feel that the initiations are vital, and they can be created in a myriad of different ways. But ultimately, we've had a lot of pseudo initiations as men, and they just don't take us to the point of really, let's say, seeing clearer. So, for example, one pseudo initiation for me was when a group of 5 lads, older, most of them older men who I hung out with, took me to Amsterdam in order to sleep with prostitutes so I could lose my virginity and I could become a man. And and they all stood outside. Eventually, when I went in, they stood outside and waited for me to go through this initiation. And when I come out, they all hugged me and cheered me on and was like, yeah, you're a man now. Now, that's one version of an initiation, but that's what I would call a pseudo initiation, which is, they did the best thing they could do back then. But we, taking me to get high on drugs and sleep with a prostitute isn't necessarily the best initiations that we men need.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we do need father figures. We need elders. We need to be guided, and they were guiding me. However that guidance was, they were guiding me where they could only take themselves. So for
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
I feel that men need guidance to see clearer.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
and that's what happened. I found my own way through a series of unconscious initiations. um, and I would say that men are very stubborn and very resistant. I mean, I talk from parts perspective, brother. So for me, I feel we all have a part inside of us which is strongly resistant and
Mhm.
scared,
Mhm.
and it's trying to protect us, right? It's trying to protect us from death.
Mhm.
But when that
Mhm.
protector can move out the way, that stubbornness and that resistant part can move out the way, we can actually access a more self energy. We can access more, a deeper loving self.
Mhm.
But those parts, if you think about it, if they've been protecting us for a series of years, they don't often want to get out of the way very fast.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, they're quite resistant. I'm tracking that resistance as we're about 2 days before I start the Bali retreat here for men, the same men's initiation we're running in Portugal, and
Right.
just the conversations I have with guys who are what I call being well fucked by the fence. They're like, oh, da, da," they're in between, and they're just in
Yeah.
this like there's that resistance because there's such a strong pull to the way in which things have been and to recognize that they're going to step into a deeper initiation that literally can rewire their nervous system, change the way they're showing up in life. It can be scary. It's like it's scary. So in those moments for you, maybe you didn't have that when you had the initiation with the prostitute, but like where's maybe some of those big moments that you had, especially on the self-development path, where you had the resistance, but you recognized a voice that was guiding you deeper? And like, what was some of the inner journey that you went through to kind of recognize, no, this is actually what I need to do?
As you just spoke, I had goosebumps all on my arms. They're still tingling a little bit when you said that there's a load of guys that you said are being fucked by the fence, right?
Mm, mhm, mhm,
So, as you said that, like this call into sovereignty, into manhood, brotherhood, like I'm 49 years old and I feel like I'm just starting to become a man.
mm,
And,
mm,
and like, the boy energy, which I know you speak about, and when we do work with the inner woman that you do so beautifully, and we connect those pieces, there is an embodiment piece that you've written about and speak about, that in order to be that embodied man,
mhm,
so many parts of who we've identified with can't function anymore.
mm,
And
mm,
because
mhm,
though, I get goosebumps again, look at that, they're all on
mm.
end. So when those parts can't function anymore, that's death.
Mm,
And
mm,
what is the greatest fear? I think at number one, I think it's the fear of death, fear of spiders, and fear of public speaking. I think they're coming at three of the biggest fears that we have as a species. So
pretty
what?
close, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, why this path of sovereignty or transitioning into being an embodied man, if you will, is so challenging, is because you behaviors and personalities have to die. You can't function
Mhm,
like that.
mhm, mhm.
So no
Yeah.
wonder that fence feels so thick.
I can't get off. What do I do? I want to go, but it keeps getting me.
I mean, does that speak to that? I mean, I know you said like what
For
of
sure.
mine, but I just kind of wanted to speak to that. I've had multiple moments, even now, I'm connecting to a new relationship. And even now, with all that I do, all that I live, all that I stand for, all that I share, parts come up. It's
Of
like
course.
they come up and they don't want to go. And then it's like, okay, speak to them. I see you. I know you're scared. I know you want love. And if we do this, we're going to receive love. So it's that, again, I use this word self energy of saying, hey, I know you're scared, but I'm
Uh-huh.
here in the driver's seat now, and
Uh-huh.
all is well.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're sharing requires a tremendous amount of awareness and attunement and consciousness to recognize that those parts are beginning to run the show and beginning to freak out, and the limiting beliefs are beginning to be the decision-making framework to how, things are happening moving forward. And I think that's, to me, really where the importance of this work is. It's like we can do so much in a retreat space, but having a man or any being walk away from a retreat and recognize that they can start to track that decision making awareness in those moments when
Yeah.
those parts are coming up, to begin to move and to give a softness, but then also to not be overwhelmed by it, to navigate more effectively into where they actually want to be. And I see this over and over. So many men are they know where they want to go, but they're almost terrified of going there.
Right. And isn't
Yeah.
that, yeah, and isn't that like, don't you find that even with relationship and love, like I find that same thing with love. It's like a deep longing to like be like consumed by that unconditional love, to receive that love, right? And then a complete terror of like, you know,
Ooh, it's going to take me.
because
For
because
sure.
it's annihilation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And what a sweet annihilation. And it also requires, in that annihilation, a complete, letting go of all the things that we've held on to.
Yeah.
I was just this morning, Natasha and I, who well, my partner, we're making love, and I was reflecting afterwards, just because all this stuff happening on social media, to the CNN investigation with men drugging their wives and taking control of them. And I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I don't even, would I even find enjoyment if she was unconscious? Like, I get so much pleasure out of making love with this woman when I hear her sounds and I hear her aliveness and I hear her breathing, and like it brings me so much joy. Like, well, it would be really boring if she was just like unconscious and knocked out. Like, I mean, it's a very like gruesome thing to think about, but like, and so I'm thinking, like, the consciousness for a man to get to that point, to realize the only way he thinks he can get like sex or love is to make his partner unconscious and then to fuck her. It's like, it's so wrong. But what's interesting is just to track the consciousness of the man, that how does he get there? Like, how does that
Yeah.
man even get there?
Yeah, that. I mean, I just picked up. I've been offline a lot recently. I just picked up on this topic in the last like day and a half. I saw a few
Okay.
posts from beings, and of course that's going full on, and rightfully so. And there's a lot of men dropping in on comments and kind of justifying and so on. Like we got to look at it from a deep systemic distortion. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we look at parts and we look at the deep sense of fear and unconsciousness, and that they are in a massive extreme survival mechanism,
Mm.
they can't feel. Like in that place they have no empathy or understanding. Or in my, this is just my, my hypothesis, it's not like the final answer. I'm sort of many different perspectives to this, but for me it's shocking and absurd when I see the extreme violence that any man or woman, because women can do it too, but in this case, any man creates on another being. But then
Mm.
when I bring it back to self, because of course the only work we can do is on ourselves, and I go, okay, so where have I violated my inner woman? Where have I violated my inner boy? Where have I violated through going over my boundaries and going into these spaces? Like I can't imagine ever doing that. And then simultaneously, I'm like, what part of not loving to the extreme where I grew up in quite harsh environments with a lot of violence. There's a lot of violence I grew up in. And
Mhm.
what was driving that violence? And
Mm.
again, Aaron, I just arrived at the ones that were causing so much violence in my growing up were so scared,
Mhm.
right? They were so scared. They were in so much fear that the only way to protect themselves was to create more violence on others,
Mm.
to
Mhm.
create a
Mhm.
false sense of security.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I'm not. So when I think of like, why would anybody, and maybe, okay, it's a fetish or we just want to abuse. Why does anybody want to abuse another soul?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's where I kind of go with it,
Yeah, and to me, that's deep down underneath, very similar to what you said. It's like there's just a place of brokenness inside, and it's a feeling of I'm not enoughness. So let me take that I'm not enoughness and either physically abuse someone or bring violence, etc. And I also think it's such a strong cultural piece as well. I mean, sexuality,
Yes.
just as you said, we come from yoni and lingam meeting, and yet as soon as we're out of the womb, it's like, oh, no, 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 I can't look at that anymore because that's dirty and gross and vulgar. And
Yeah.
sexuality in of itself is such a terrible, um, education for us. And I know you're initially from England, and come from that part of the world where definitely there's some challenges with sexuality. What's like, especially around sexuality in your own journey, what's been some of the biggest, you could say, learnings or re-education pieces you've had to be able to have such a healthy relationship with it now, as well as to really teach people around healthy sexuality?
Yeah, it's a beautiful segue, and I just want to say, because you called this shadow hunting, I want to speak a very tiny piece that just that extreme topic that you just brought up, and you said it lovely that there's a not enoughness, but at the same time, and I know this is not easy to see, somehow, Aaron, in that violence, deep inside, there's that little boy or little girl that wants love and thinks, because
Hmm.
I think often about pedophilia, right? And I think to
Mhm.
myself, like, many of them have been shown that in order to get love, that's how you do it. The distortions of how you get love is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
warped,
Yeah.
it's so warped. And that kind of, so I just wanted to point that into as I weave into the piece on sexuality. Does it make
For
sense?
sure, for sure. Well, and that's, I feel like, very connected in sexuality as well, is that little boy that, no longer feels like he's getting the love from mom, essentially. That's we were just my partner, who's 7.5 months pregnant and breastfeeding, and talking about the fetish that men have with breasts. It's like, this is where you came from. I would love what you were just saying right before we got on the
Yeah,
call.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so my distortions with sexuality, are also, so for example, I didn't masturbate, and
Mm.
I did masturbate, but so temporarily, because I didn't realize until I was 40 years old, when I started the sexological bodywork training and going deeper into sexuality, I didn't realize that I had a false belief that masturbation was not only dirty, but if I masturbate, it meant back then that I couldn't get a woman.
Mm.
So if
Mm.
you masturbated, you couldn't get a woman, because you had
Mm.
to, clearly you had to go and play with yourself, so you couldn't pull a woman. What a wild thought. I don't even know where that came from. But as
Mhm.
I follow the thread through the process I've been on now with sexuality, what I started to realize is that Jack Morin speaks about something in the core erotic mind. Um, no, sorry, in the erotic mind is the name of the book, and the process he talks about is core erotic theme. So the
Mm.
core
Mhm.
erotic
Mhm.
theme is the early sexual encounters that you've had that shape you into your sexuality, right?
Mhm.
And that those sexual encounters could be how you maybe saw your mum and dad making love. It could be the first time you touched yourself, and so on. So mine were built on the basis of adrenaline and fear,
Mhm.
because in my early ones, they were a lot of cheating involved, betrayal, multiple sexual partners, and very kind of one night stands and so on like that. And so from the age of 16, from the age of 16 to 21, I slept with 100 women, and 55 of those I paid for. Some prostitutes in Amsterdam and in Thailand. And the quest was, me and a friend had a bet, who can sleep with 100 women first, right? And based on that distortion was basically, of course, what happened. We just saw women as sex.
Yep.
You know,
Objectified as
and
sex.
how can I? It's not that I didn't have some lovely experiences, but mostly it was like, okay, how am I going to pull another woman? You know, it was just like this very disconnected from any sort of emotional understanding of what happens when we go into intimacy. You know, and then the other piece I want to share with you is that I had massive amount of fear and premature ejaculation, because I wasn't playing with myself and I didn't have much of a relationship with my sexuality. So therefore, what did I do, brother? Drugs, alcohol, and you wouldn't believe this. It's so crazy, and I'm sure some people may have done this, but I bought this numbing gel, one that I found in Thailand, and in Europe, I found something called stud spray. And I would put that on the end of my corona, on my bell end, right? Think about this. Think of craziness. To numb my lingam, because if I numb my lingam, I don't feel, which means I would last longer.
Well. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I had such a big conversation with premature ejaculation, with erectile dysfunction, you know, and so many men. I've recently done some posts more around sexuality. I've been working with sexuality for a long time, and I don't always post in that way. And it's been interesting because in putting myself out there, instead of actually comments on a lot of the posts, I'm getting a lot of men just messaging me privately because they have so much shame about ED, about, you know, erectile dysfunction, around premature ejaculation. It's like they wouldn't even begin to admit it in any type of public forum. But you know, and even to send a message is a huge step. So I'm always like, thank you for your like stepping forth and just taking a place here. Most often it will come with just like, you know, it takes me a little while to recognize that that's the issue there, but it's this like deep layered shame.
Yes.
That if my cock doesn't get up, then I'm somehow broken, or if I can't last long, then I'm not a good man. And
yes,
this is, we do in the initiation journey, one we'll be holding in Portugal, you know, we do a really strong piece with shame. And I love just like in this piece, when men are beginning to share and beginning to open up, it's like the layers and the mask just begin to, you know, come off more and more and more. And then you watch, it's like the physiology in men change, because they're like, oh, I actually have a place where I can share that story that I've been holding on to for so long. And that is just incredibly liberating. So my question to you in that is, you mentioned, you know, having premature ejaculation. Like what's been your journey with that? Like how have you navigated it? I'm sure it's a big open one, but share as you wish.
Yeah. Just thank you for bringing this this question, because I think so much, again, I'm using just, you said about shadow hunting, right? Because the thing is, I also didn't realize until I went further into the sexuality, I didn't really even realize I had so much shame, Aaron, about this. It wasn't until I looked back and reflected and was like, you know what happened one time? I just want to tell you this fun. It's not even a fun story at the time, but you know, fun now. I attracted this phenomenal, you know, young woman. I was driving. I pulled her over in the car. We had this whole thing. I was super excited. She stopped in the lay-by. We started chatting.
Ultimate man challenge. She finds a woman in a sexy car on the side of the street. One all the men are dreaming about.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
driving, I'm following her a little, and I'm seeing her in the mirror, and she pulled over. And I pulled over, and I was, oh, no. I went to speak to her. And then and later she said, well, you can come meet up later, Well, then we meet later. And I was like, okay, cool, So I went away excited that evening, Anyway, I went to meet her. She was at her friend's house. She opened the door, and that was just like, it was all this attraction, this build up, this anticipation. Started kissing her at the door, and ejaculated, right? Just kissing in the door. So guess what I did? Run away.
Wow.
I ran away,
Wow.
bro.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't
Uh-huh.
even stay there. I just
Wow.
left.
Wow. Wow.
Man, I get goosebumps. It's crazy. Like, I just left. That amount of shame, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even realize that I had that amount of shame as I reflected on that story many years later, and was like,
Mm-hmm.
and also what she must have felt,
Why'd
you
this
know,
guy leave? We were just kissing and he's out.
you know,
What
and
did I
so
do?
what did I do? Was my breath bad?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Right? But the piece why I tell you this story is that level of the part that took over, that felt so much shame, that the only way to protect itself from that shame was to get away as quick as possible, because that is wrong. Whereas now, even if I did premature ejaculate, or if I have a wet dream, I used to have so many wet dreams. If I have a wet dream now, or I have a soft lingam or anything, it's just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
Yeah. Yeah.
cares? Oh,
Beautiful.
I got so excited that I got overwhelmed and I ejaculated. Great. Beautiful.
Amazing.
You know?
Amazing.
So yeah, I don't know. I know you said, so just, there's a one little piece that you said, like, how has it changed? Well, one thing for certain is I get men to celebrate their ejaculation. I
Great.
celebrate it,
Yeah.
meaning that
Yeah.
if you ejaculate, we celebrate. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
How many times, Aaron, I ejaculated and instantly I felt I come too soon.
I've messed up. It's too
I
early.
messed up.
Yeah. She hasn't orgasm yet. I've done something
Yeah,
wrong. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Like literally most of my, my lovemaking.
Well, well.
You know.
And do you feel like with the celebration that, like, do you feel like there's been through time in the celebration of that, like some capacity to rewire this relationship with premature ejaculation? Like what
Yeah,
is your yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me. Yeah, good. Keep me on track. So basically, what I did, I learned how to self pleasure and make
Mm.
love to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
what happened at 40 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I was loving myself. I'd been talking about self-love for a long time. I was touching myself. I was in a long-term relationship with the woman you met as well, Dara.
Mm-hmm.
So we were making love in different ways and learning to breathe and doing different things, But still, during that time, I was noticing I had these threads of this kind of shame. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I learned this technique that I now share, which was originally called orgasmic yoga, and we learned how to breathe, sound, and move and touch, and that
Mm-hmm.
the hands that we touch with hold the heart or hold our heart. So when we become the greatest lover of ourselves, and we
Mm.
learn to breathe and move and sound and move energy, then all of a sudden I started to realize that I can touch myself and pleasure myself, and that the sexual center isn't the only place that is called the lingam for me. The whole body is a lingam. The whole body is
Mm-hmm.
a pleasure instrument. So
Mm-hmm.
now if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's touching my arm and I'm receiving pleasure through my arm, it's the same as me receiving pleasure into my lingam. And then over time, through soft touch and sensuality, I resensitized my lingam. So I didn't have this numb sensations. And I learned how to touch myself and be with myself. And in doing that, I learned how to communicate more with how I want to be loved, how I want to be touched. And then I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to become a good lover to myself. And in
Mm-hmm.
that, deep acceptance came, deep understanding, a deep release of the shame. And actually, you know what, brother? Seeing the innocence in my whole journey of sexuality, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, so what I hear in that is the journey of re-falling in love with your body temple and actually learning how to pleasure it in a way that feels good and brings you alive and brings you joy, which to me I feel is such an ultimate initiation that most men never even begin to contemplate. And it's a funny thing that men have. There's almost this expectation, to find a woman who's going to pleasure him and to make him feel good, but he doesn't even know how to do that for himself. And it's
Yes.
always like this longing. I mean, that was a big part of my journey, was always projecting my own inner feminine onto the partner I was with, until finally, like, I collapsed on the floor and I had to come back, and it led to a big journey of finding the self-pleasure and finding my own frequency. And as a sailor working out at the sea and having lovers in every port and lots of pornography on board, there was a lot of that. And to actually sit down and to touch myself without agenda, without destination, without trying to get anywhere. I remember I was so
Exactly.
confused at first. I'm like,
Exactly.
what do I do here? This is awkward. This is strange. Give me something to look at. I need something to put my mind to. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Can I say one thing to that?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now it's beautiful that you bring in porn. So I didn't, thankfully, or whatever, this is no judgment to anyone. I didn't get deep into porn
Mm,
because I had this, like, when I look back now, I'm like, oh, this belief was actually quite good, because on some level, because I didn't want to masturbate, I also had this resistance to porn.
great.
And now I work with men who have got 20-year porn addiction, 15-year porn addiction, 10-year masturbating 3 to 5 times a day. Some of them can't get off it, right?
Hmm.
And I'm
Hmm.
working with them and giving them like a healthy porn choreography, and teaching them, like you just said, how to touch their body and learn how to move out of just fantasy driven outside projected visuals in order to get stimulation.
Hmm.
And you said it
Hmm.
so beautifully. You said you felt awkward and weird. So when I do workshops, or I'm doing sessions, and I say, first of all, I say, Aaron, I say, right, today we're going to touch the whole body as a lingam. And that means you're not going to touch the lingam as you normally touch the lingam. And we're going to, touch the whole body. And it's so interesting sometimes, bless my brothers, but, it, they can't go to touching the whole body. It's just like, you
What,
know,
what do I do?
yeah,
This thing,
it's
I need
like,
to go here.
yeah, yeah. It's like, touch the face, and they're like, "Wow, touch the face. What's going on in the face?" and
Yeah.
and I'm not making fun. Any brothers listening to you, I'm not
No,
making
no,
fun
no,
of
no,
you.
no.
It's not making fun. It's just to notice how mechanical pleasure has become. That my teacher said to me, the penis, the lingam as we're calling it, it's what I like to call it, is the most touched organ by a man, of course, in the least creative way.
Mm, hmm.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. It reminds me in the practitioner training I teach, where we're doing both psychotherapy work as well as hands-on tantric body work. It's teaching people how to do like really powerful, deep tantric massage and being able to, facilitate all those strokes on a lingam, for a male body, whether you're a male body or female body. And there's a 21 stroke Taoist massage that we teach inside of that.
Right.
And this is the piece I want to bring in, because I feel in the world of, like, I feel like there's multiple layers in the world of men's work and brotherhood and all of that. And I feel often a lot of the men's work that's quite strong in the world, which is great. It's great that men come together. I call it's like belly up,
Belly up.
maybe, yeah, like, it's dealing maybe a little bit with emotions, but like it's not really dealing with the core roots of around our sexuality, which
Yeah.
I understand, because often I find the guys who are even holding those spaces haven't done the sexual shadow work that they need to do
Right.
to be able to do that. So it can't expect them to do something they haven't done. But like this super deep, almost societal fear and conditioning around homophobia,
Yes.
around male bodies, and it's I always think of it when I'm in India and you see like a lot of men holding their hands in the streets, and there's a lot of touch and connection between men, and what I observe in a very healthy way. I know there's also a very unhealthy piece that happens behind the scenes with all of that. So I'm curious where your journey is with that piece, because it's a strong piece of like, how can we relate as brothers? It doesn't mean like I need to be sexually attracted to you. I'm a very, heterosexual man, and I have attraction to female bodies, but I've also leaned into the edges in my sexuality with male bodies to know what it is I want. But so many men are terrified of that because
Mm.
of what that might mean and because of what's coming up with that. So I'm curious your take on this piece of the conversations. I feel like it's such an important piece for the depth of brotherhood.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I love about you anyway, of course, as brothers. But I mean, you and I are affectionate with each other, and I love how I can be in your presence and maybe lay on your chest, or receive touch from you, or feel close to you, and you're one of the brothers that I've been like that. And I was just talking at a men's workshop I did in Copenhagen, and at the end, Aaron, I know you know this, you're in these spaces, but when all the brothers are there and we're laying on each other and we're close and we're holding each other, and there's this holding. Oh, I get goosebumps as I said that. I said to them, I said at the beginning, I said, I always ask if there's any brothers in the room that are exploring from a different space, like LGBTQ plus, anyone in these realms. And also, I like to demystify this whole thing about the macho man that doesn't touch another man,
Mhm,
and I'm
mhm,
like,
mhm.
just so you know, I've never been held as beautifully by anybody than a man. And
Same.
many, and in relationship, often we hear that we go into relationship and women say, oh, I want to be able to hold you, and I'm like, that's beautiful. And sometimes you don't know how to hold me, because I need a man to hold me, because a man knows how to hold a man. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
Right.
mhm.
So
For
what
sure.
I bring is this idea of the gentleman, the idea of like, how do we soften into our deeper intimacy, to move beyond as you said, the cultural conditioning of homophobia. If I'm holding
Mhm,
hands with you, I mean, I love hugging, cuddling, kissing men, stroking men, being with men, and I've had experiences where men have penetrated me with their finger, with their with a dildo, through the process of me softening and opening my body.
mhm,
And so,
mhm.
and I'm also now saying to a lot of men that I support, if you haven't been penetrated in your anus, if you haven't been penetrated in your body in a way,
Oh,
exploration of feeling what it's like to be penetrated, yeah, right? That deep feeling of what it's like to be penetrated, the way that softens the pelvis and brings you into a deep sense of vulnerability, and then how you can show up with the opposite genders, I'm going to say genders, in a deep knowing, right? With the way that we then penetrate our partners and penetrate life is completely different.
yeah, yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah. Yeah, it's, built in this place of men that we love to penetrate, but are often terrified of being penetrated, and
Yes.
the deep fear that resides inside of all of that, and all that, deep relaxation. I mean, I remember the first time for myself, I received like a sacred spot massage, which is more, not necessarily a prostate, but a place that it opens up kind of that place of deeper relaxation in the body. And I had a strong yoga practice at the time. I remember I was doing my handstands the following day, and I just felt like I was floating. My whole body just, and I felt energetically alive. And I realized, wow, I've been holding a lot of tension in my body. And if you look at, men, one of the number one killers is prostate, cancer. And
Yeah.
that's, right there at the core is inevitably broken in many ways. So yeah, I love that we can speak into that.
Yeah, well,
The
I know
Yeah.
time's ticking. I want to say one thing because there may be many brothers listening. I use something called the Anarus, and it's a
Hmm.
prostate massager.
Hmm.
And I just want to do that as a. I'm not getting any commissions from Anarus, but just so you know, you can
Anoris.
Anarus. But there's other brands, but this particular one, and what it does for me is exactly what you just said, Aaron. It brought deep relaxation into my being, into my pelvis. And
Yeah.
you put it in and you leave it there, and it gently, with little squeezing, it massages the prostate.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, there's a company I'm connected to, Takion, and I've, in my own self-pleasure practice now for years, generally probably a couple times a month I'll use that. And
Perfect.
I found, like, my father or my family hereditary gave me the gift of hemorrhoids, and I find that actually by using that, then the hemorrhoids go away. So it's been amazing for that. And I say that to men all the time. And it's so funny because I imagine even, men who might be listening to this are like, how can these guys even talk about things like, I imagine even there might be some tight asses that are listening to this right now who are both curious as well as, like, intrigued as well as terrified. So just a question
Yeah.
for the listeners: is your asshole tight in this moment? That's what's checking on.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny you said it because look, I go a bit red as well. I blush a little bit when you say that. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's
I blush.
beautiful.
Yeah, because actually, let's just speak briefly to that. Like, there's a vulnerability in sharing this
For sure.
in this space. I feel I don't just do it from that kind of arrogance. Like, one, I love you and trust you fully, and I can share everything with you. And I mean, it's nice to share some of these things with you because we haven't actually shared some of this stuff before.
For
Um,
sure.
and the other piece is that we've got to a certain place through embodiment, through doing the work, that we can feel safe and confident to share this level of vulnerability now. And
Mhm, mhm.
that's what we want to offer men in general, so that we can all soften our assholes a bit and feel connected to each other.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, I wanna speak into the framework around, initiation and what that means, and I feel like that in a space can have so many, like the training that, I'll be doing leading a couple days as well as be doing in Portugal. I remember the first time I took this similar training, it was with a mentor, Bruce Lyon, back in 2017. At the end of that training, basically said, like, "I don't wanna do this anymore. Who would like to bring this into the world?" So I brought, a few other pieces and, another training I had done down in New Zealand, called Te Ka, and just kind of wove together all these things. And the fear that comes up in people. I remember a brother called me, like, after the training, and he had heard all these pieces. He's like, did he, like, make you guys do things together, or what did he make you do? And I'm like, "Bro, you teach in the field of tantra, right? You realize you're asking me if a teacher forced us to do things with one another." I'm like, "No, there was none of that." Like, there was
Yeah.
actually a deep journey into the consent of our own body. So I also wanna say, because I feel like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts of this as well, like, in this field of embodiment and tantra and sacred sexuality, like, to be a male body teaching and facilitating these spaces takes a lot of fucking courage. One, like, I
Mm.
wanna give hats off to you because I feel it inside of me, and I know what it means to show up in these spaces. But when it comes to the projections and the blame and the shame and the things that can come on, even sometimes before we've done anything, because of so many male bodies that have misused these spaces and not asked for consent. And consent is such a huge piece of the work that we're bringing in. It's actually helping people define sovereignty and consent inside themselves. So what are some of your thoughts, especially when it comes to both the misuse of power that people almost just presume is going to happen, in a space that they can deem as being tantric. It's like, oh, it's a tantric space. There's going to be some fucked up shit going on where you're going to be forced to do things. Like I
Yeah.
almost think that's like a prerequisite people have in their brain about these things.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. This is a big topic now of power over and
Mm-hmm.
the you know the ego. If you want to use that, I use that word lightly because there's nothing wrong with the ego. I would say it's more the parts in us, using the parts reference again, the parts in us that then misuse are the ones that are actually again in fear and being taken over by these protectors
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
they've probably been overpowered in themselves in some way, and at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, we are white cis male, privileged, going into these spaces, and we're going to get a load of projection of us, not only the father projections and but also men projecting onto us, their whatever gurus and leaders and so on. I mean, I just want to say from my side, thankfully, so far in the last decade of creating these spaces, um, for me, it's really like what am I holding as
Mm.
my container of intention?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've often had people come up to me and say thank you so much because I can feel the cleanness and the clarity in the spaces that you hold. I mean, I'm holding naked retreats for the last decade where
Mm-hmm.
everyone's coming and taking their clothes off and we're all nude in the space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People are thinking that we're just doing some sort of naked brothel of orgy or something. There's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
never been an orgy on any retreat that I've been involved in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even if there was, I'm not even saying there's a problem with an orgy because it all depends on context. But in
Yep.
terms of when we're dealing with sexuality, there's a real sensitivity, and we have to create a space of consent. And I know there's a talk at the moment about safety. There's no safe place. There's safe spaces, and we can't control the safety of somebody else. And these are brave spaces.
Mm-hmm.
They are brave spaces, and we have to have a level of understanding around what's going to go on in people emotionally. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I went
Mm-hmm.
into this field. I went into this field not really knowing so much about nervous system, not knowing much about trauma, not knowing much about these fields, and learned through the process of what was happening to people when we come into these spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, if your intentions are clear and you're showing up, you're also putting yourself in a very vulnerable, unpredictable place with a
Mm-hmm.
group of beings in the room that you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
For
it's not
sure.
like you can't cover every base. But the
Yeah.
question is, are you as an individual, me and from me, am I able to take full responsibility for what is going to happen in these spaces before I even
Mm-hmm.
start them? And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think anyone, including myself, really knows what we're dealing with when we go into these fields, right? Because somebody comes in and they've got a trauma of abuse, of rape, of we just don't know what's going to come up. So the last piece I would say on it is, if we don't have a space of consent where literally people can feel in themselves that the nervous system is relaxed and that they are making a decision what they want to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then the problem that happens after is the after stories become the problem, because
Yeah.
the dramas and the after stories come later.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hear in that it's really, knowing and supporting someone to come inside of the consent of their own body and to really find that no. And the challenge is, of course, as you know, it's like so many people's decision making centers have been taken away because of the trauma they've gone through. So it requires such a fine tunement to really, recognize the depth of the spaces we're going into. I mean, I definitely, feel that a lot in these men's containers as well, especially just for the depth of pain and agony. I feel like men, especially men who have had sexual abuse from other men and have had, difficulty and challenge in that way, often like that's a part in society that's so hidden behind it all. And it's not to say, women haven't been abused and all that's it's happening all the time. And yet that piece for men who have been abused, it's almost is not really even any place to speak about it in a healthy way because everything's just, driven in the opposite direction. So
Yeah.
when I can witness men having the freedom and the comfortability to meet some of those parts that have been shied away for so long, then there's that coming back into sovereignty, as you say, into
Yeah,
consent.
yeah, but there's a very important piece of this. I think this is such an interesting topic when we talk about it because there's many different perspectives of how it should be and what people should know and shouldn't know. Is like this piece about intention,
Mm,
like, like I don't know, like there's something in the primal, and maybe people can't connect to this, but like I don't know about you, Aaron, but when I go to an event or somebody's facilitating, I can taste if they're full of shit.
mm, mm,
I
mhm,
can
mhm,
taste, I can taste, I can taste if they are bullshit. I can smell them, you
mhm,
know?
mhm,
And so what I often feel is that where people, I think, which I'm not saying everybody can do this, and this is why it can become very volatile and dangerous at times, is that when your body is, it's such an interesting piece when we work with nervous system and so on, because we've got the whole fawning response, we've got the whole people pleasing, we've got the whole going over our boundaries and not realizing until later. But the question is, are the facilitators holding a point? Like you can just feel, I don't know, it's hard to, maybe you can help me with this. I'm saying you can feel safety or not, you
mhm,
can
mhm.
feel, like in your body. But of course, this is a very subtle topic because clearly gurus and peers and they are violating, right? They're doing it.
Mm,
So they are
mhm, mhm.
manipulating and they are using their skills in order to fulfill their leaking sexual energy. So it
Mhm,
is so it
mhm,
is happening, and people are falling prey to that. So I don't want to
mhm.
sit here in a kind of moral superior and go, well, you should just know about it because people are getting violated. But for
Yeah, yeah,
me,
yeah.
I go into these spaces and I can smell it.
Mm, mm.
I can taste it.
Yeah, and my sense is obviously in knowing you, you can smell and taste that because you also have cultivated a sense of your own inner safety, and you know how to move in the world, and this is where I feel like this conversation really should always go with people around safety is rather than having it be, needing to find safety on the outside. Of course, a facilitator, a group, an organization to do their best to hold a container in a way that supports, the safe framework of that. But ultimately, it's remembering and coming back into knowing the safety inside of ourselves. And from that place, then actually the world can open a bit more. So,
Mm. Yeah,
well,
this is a big topic. I know we're coming to a close. It's such a big topic, and maybe even there may have to be new frameworks of inquiry to support people because some people are coming into these spaces and there's certain questions maybe that they need to get clear on in themselves before they even enter into some of these spaces.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, I agree, absolutely. Amazing, brother. Well, thank you for who you are in the world, for the laughing burglar, comedian, epic human that I love and appreciate. And yeah, it's a joy to have you as a friend in my life and to teach alongside you. And very excited about our upcoming the men's initiation happening in Portugal, and looking forward to see you coming in and teaching this work as well. And I know you're already doing a lot of that, but this, kind of version and variation of this initiation. And yeah, we'll be there in Portugal for the first week of June. So if you're a brother listening to this and you're feeling that pulse, then definitely come join us. And there'll be more information around that. Anything you'd like to share to the audience about how to find you? Anything you'd like to offer? Things that are coming up for you?
No, but I noticed from this topic that you just brought up that I can feel in my belly like a subtle tension,
Mm,
and if you're listening to this and you're hearing just this small part of what Aaron and I are touching on here, it's not the whole piece, because this is a vast spectrum that we're dealing with in these spaces and in this society right now around violation for men and women. And that I
mhm,
know that Aaron and myself and many others out there, our intention is to face this and to create spaces where we can all heal this together and work as a team, so that
mhm,
nobody, I mean, my dream is nobody is being violated. But until we understand how we're violating ourselves day to day, until we understand of the amount of violence that's playing out just in our internal parts,
mm, mm,
we're going to have to keep walking and learning as we go. And this is what these spaces are for me. They're not just they're not, like Aaron said earlier, a quick 5-7 days and at the end you're initiated and you're healed and everything's solved. This is a lifelong quest of
mm,
rewiring our subconscious and taking responsibility for who we are, so we can create a new culture. And that's what I stand for. That's what I live for. And I know that's what Aaron lives for. And I get goosebumps because, if we're going to create a new civilization, and I could say this to the brothers as well, there is work that we have to do day to day. And we got to
mhm,
do it on our
mhm,
own, and we got to do it with each other. And when we come together in these spaces, we hold each other.
mm,
I'm not, you
mm.
think I'm dedicating my life just to come together to violate some men in an environment? Fuck that, am I?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I'm
exactly,
coming together so
exactly.
that there is no violation, because I've been violated, my mum's been violated, and many other beings in my life have been violated and abused.
Mhm,
And this work is so that that ends for our children's children, because Aaron's child is my child. It's
mm,
not just
mm.
Aaron's had a child now, it's our child, our next generation. So I
Yeah,
just want to just
yeah.
voice that is my intention and what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Thank you for bringing that clarity. I appreciate it, brother. Yeah.
I love you.
Mm, love you, and thank you all for tuning in. If you want to find out more about the initiation journey, you can go to theinitiationjourney.com. I think it's simonpaulsutton.com. Is that yeah, you can find all the info on Simon. And if you're just tuning in to Love, Sex, and Leadership, please like or subscribe or comment and share. And if there's any particular topic around this that was challenging or difficult for you, you're welcome to ask us any questions. We're happy to support you on your journey. So have a beautiful day. Thank you for your time, and see you next time.